Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to a new video on my channel. I just want to quickly tell you about my Patreon account you can subscribe to if you want to learn loads of up-close tutorials about different tattoo techniques and secrets and tips and stuff. Follow the link at the bottom of the screen right now. Thanks to everyone that has pledged already and is using the service. It's been amazing so far, and it's been really cool to see you guys progress with your work. So make sure you go check it out, and let's head straight into this video. So guys, so I'm in the studio and I thought I should do another video. So I thought I'd do 7 best things, or the 7 most important things in my opinion that I need on a day-to-day basis to allow a consistent tattoo. So first of all, I'm going to talk about is printing quality. So to have a good printer is, I think, essential. If you're working off of paper, if you're hand stenciling, then you would really need a high quality printer. If you're stenciling through a iPad, for instance, then you probably wouldn't need that because you're just going to be printing lines anyway. So a printer I go to, so this is my printer that I use, the HP OfficeJet 250 mobile all-in-one, and it's portable, so I can take it, and it's pretty, you know, small, so you can take it anywhere, and it's super high quality. It prints super high quality stuff. So this is what I would use if I was to use an inkjet printer, or you can get a laser, which is more, well, it's like one of those big office ones. So yeah, that's the other type of printer, but those normally cost a lot of money, and isn't really mobile. So if you're working away and stuff, you know, this is literally the perfect printer if you need to print anything out on the go. It's got a battery pack there, so you can, you know, you can charge it up, and you don't have to leave it in the mains to run it. It's dead right now because I haven't used it in a while, so that's that. So the second thing I think is detrimental for me as a tattooist, and I think all of you, is again stencil paper. Stencil paper, high quality, decent stencil paper. There's not many brands, I don't think, but having good quality stencil paper does change the game because it allows the stencil to stick on better and longer. This is the one I use. I as you know, I do everything freehand, so I do everything freehand, and if I was to stencil through an iPad and then print the lines out, I would then put that through a stencil machine. I'll put that through a stencil machine, and this is the one I use if I do that, thermal paper. So this is the classic thermal paper. Then I've got the classic freehand as well if I'm doing anything by hand. I've got the extra long one because it comes in 2 sizes. I just feel like I need an extra length just in case. Extra what? Also, I think a high quality stencil applicator is essential as well. So I currently use Nico Hurtado's Anchored. This is backwards probably, but Nico Hurtado Anchored is one of the best I've used. I've used loads before. I've used so many brands. This is pretty good. I would recommend this, and also this Anchored, Nico Hurtado's Anchored, and I would also recommend stencil stuff. Most people that I've had tattoo me uses this just because it's pretty decent. Can't really, I mean, they're really similar in terms of quality. So yeah, that's again, combined with a decent stencil paper, your stencils aren't going to move. They're just not going to move. So the third thing on my list, or the fourth thing on my list, is going to be needles. I think everyone should be striving to pay a bit extra money for high quality needles because it does change your work. And in terms of high quality needles, I'm going to pick out 3 brands that I feel are the best quality that I've used. This is all in my opinion. First one is going to be Da Vinci. These are really nice needles. Super nice, and yeah, you know, and in terms of a high quality needle, I really love this packaging as well. It's cool, isn't it? It's really cool. The slogan's always on point. In terms of a high quality needle, you're looking for, if I was to just pop you down a little bit, in terms of high quality needle, I'm just going to open one of these needles now. You are looking for, Christ, that doesn't want to open. Oh yeah, these are there. So in terms of needles, let me just explain a high quality needle. So this is the Da Vinci one, which is this brand here. This is the Da Vinci one. If you look at the the amount of movement in the cartridge. Now, this is detrimental, I think, for a decent tattoo needle, because if you're trying to shade and it's moving around, you're going to get inconsistent results. Now, I think Da Vinci is one of the nicest needles I've used, but there is a bit of movement in there. How well the needles are put together and how well they're soldered and how in form they are is spot on. Super nice needles to use, but the reason I would go for Cheyenne, which is, I think this brand is the top needle in the game, because there's hardly no movement. Look at that, there's none at all. Can't even see it. I can't even see any movement in there. There's none. It's like the slightest bit, but it's just me flexing the needle, really. It's just me moving. There's literally no movement whatsoever all the way through, and it's because it's snug up to this line, and that's why you get more consistent results with this. Now I'll just do this again, just so you can see. There's a lot more movement in that needle than this one. There's hardly nothing in this one. So that was shader needles. I'm gonna move on to lining needles now. Now, having said Cheyenne are the best shading needles that I've used, which is 100% correct. Going back to these, you know, there's hardly no movement in the shading needles, but their liners aren't so great. The liners, so I've got a liner here. Now, these are both 3-round liners. This is why I always go to Quadrant. So Quadrant, I think, are the best, well, the best I've used for liner needles. So I've used their shaders and I don't like their shaders. I think their shaders are quite bad for me, for how I tattoo. Compared to Cheyenne, I think their shaders are pretty bad. They're still probably, well, Quadrant is a very, very well-respected brand, but in terms of shaders in cartridge form, they're nothing compared to the Cheyenne make. So, but their liners are unreal in cartridge form. So if you look at these two together, so on the left we have the Cheyenne, which are a very high respected brand for shading, and we have a Quadrant. So if you look, these are both 3-round liners, by the way. If you look, I'm going to bring it up close to the camera if I can. So look, you can see the amount of movement. Look at all that movement. This is why I hate their liners. Now, if you look at Quadrants, hardly none. And that is, again, the hardly none there. I'm moving it around a lot. It's just flexing the needle. Whereas if I'm using this one, so much movement in there. And that's why I hate Cheyenne needles, because you're trying to do a line, you're being really consistent with it, and then it's just vibrating against the skin, and then all of a sudden it will go like that, and it will just move so much, and then you've just got some inconsistent line. Whereas with the Quadrant, you've got just hardly no movement at all. And that's why I like them so much, because they feel a lot more snug. You're always going to get movement in some needles, but the amount of movement in a Quadrant compared to a Cheyenne is just insane. You can even see it halfway down as well. So that's why I think Quadrant are one of the best leading brands for liners in cartridges, in my opinion. So yeah. Now the next thing I'm going to talk about is high quality ink. I think high quality ink is essential for a good tattoo as well. The more pigment you have, the more depth you have. So if you have more pigment in your ink, then you're going to have more, it's going to be darker in the skin. So I'll show you an example again. So this is dynamic black, and this is just a regular dynamic black, and this is a fusion basic black. So this is regular basic black. But when you tattoo with these two inks, even though they're both black, this one has more pigment in, which means it looks blacker in the skin and you get more depth, which is why I went with the triple black. The hell? So in terms of high quality ink, I would use a darker pigment ink purely because it just looks better in the skin. Now I use this for my grey wash, but then I go up to a darker pigment to get the blacks, because I use a lot of blacks, and then I use a lot of negative space in my work as well. So as long as I've got a really solid dark black, I know I've got the contrast and the depth there, do you know what I mean? So choose a high quality ink. Fusion's a really good ink as well. And if you're gonna go for black in the dynamic, I would get the triple black, which is here. So for an example, this is my setup I use. I use, for the black, the solid black, I use triple black because there's more pigment in just the normal black. So that's what I use. I use this for my grey wash to dilute down, and I use this for the black, like the solid black. And I know I've got the contrast there as well, you know, and these two similar, these are really similar in terms of how much pigment black there is in it. So I'm always gonna get kind of like the same results, but this is really thick ink and this is quite thin. When you've got a thicker ink, it's harder to work with it on the skin because you struggle to wipe it off as easy as the thinner ink. So it's just personal preference really. Some people like it, some people don't, and that's it. So I use this, I've used this, but I use this because it's easier to work with for me, and that's just my opinion. But Fusion ink's unreal, really, really nice. So last on our list is gonna be a high quality power pack. I think power pack is one of the most essential things, something that's gonna be consistent. I've got the Econ EMS 420, so I would use a really, really good quality power pack just because you've got consistent voltage there, something that doesn't dip in voltage, so it powers the machine consistently so you don't have inconsistent things in your work. The main thing to remember about tattooing is it needs to be as consistent as possible. So consistent voltage, which means consistent output to the machine, and consistent needles, which means that you won't have any shakes in your lines or in your shading. And then following that, you need consistent hand speed, which means the more consistent your hand speed is and hand techniques are, the more consistent your work's gonna be. So I think tattooing is a lot about consistency. If you've got high quality stuff and reliable stuff, I think you can't go wrong, and it is going to up your game. Machines, I could talk about machines, but I'm probably not going to talk about this. It's just so many options of machines, and I don't really like, I've used so many machines and still got the same kind of quality of work, because I've got all these things that I've just spoke about in this video. So I don't really think machines are detrimental to someone's work, although it does help if you set up your machine right. So yeah, hopefully you like this video, guys. Please thumbs up this video, and if you're not subscribed, then please subscribe, if that helped me out. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers for watching, guys.